Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to start building a project for my son's room. It is a much needed project. We have a huge mess of Legos, a huge explosion of Legos. So we're gonna build something to tackle that. In fact, it is a pretty versatile project. You can use it in any craft room, even in a workshop, and it's a pretty straightforward project as well. But before I start building, let me show you what the situation in his room looks like with the Legos.
This is how we've been storing all the Legos till now. They're all by sets with their instructions and all the pieces in each of these Ziplocs. But as you can see, it's a huge big mess. And now we're at the point where we're missing pieces of one, so we can't make that. They're mixed up, and I think it's best that we just sort them out by color, and that will make it easy for them to build stuff, and it will also inspire some creativity.
Step 1 is obviously to start making the cuts. As always, I have the full detailed plans, schematics, dimensions, and step-by-step tutorial available for you, and I will add a link to that in the description below. I designed the storage card to use 2x2s, 1x2s, and plywood. When I went into my workshop looking for lumber that I already had, I had a lot of 1x3s. So I decided to use the 1x3s instead of the 1x2s, which is why you see me cutting the 1x3s. But I will tell you later how and why I could not use them. Additionally, I also cut up 4 pieces of 2x4s to use as spacers, and I'll show you how I used them in a little bit. Now onto the plywood. You can totally use a table saw to cut up your plywood, but I wanted to keep things simple, so I'm just using a circular saw. I simply clamped the straight edge guide to the plywood and made the cuts. This project uses 1 full sheet of plywood, and the plans actually show you exactly how to divide up your plywood to make the most of it. Now, on all of the shelves, we want to cut out the corners to accommodate our 2x2s. So I used my multi-mark tool and marked a 1.5 inch square on each of the corners. And then I used a jigsaw to cut them all out. Now before assembly, I applied edge banding to all the edges of the plywood that would be visible. You can also use spackle or wood filler to cover up these edges if you are going to be painting it like I did with a few other projects. But here I just decided to go ahead with the edge banding, as I think that's the fastest way to do this. Once it's sanded and cleaned up, it gives a nice seamless finish. Now it's time for the pocket holes. I set the drill bit collar to 1.5 inches for the 2x2 boards and made the pocket holes. And then I set the drill bit to 3/4 inch and went ahead and made pocket holes in the 1x3 boards. Now I already told you I'm not going to be using the 1x3s, but here's why I'm showing this to you.
So as I was making the pocket holes, I realized that I was getting this. I was getting holes on the side of the board, which should not happen. If the pocket hole setting is correct, you should not get any holes on the side of the boards. So like this, 0 holes on the edges. This means that the drill bit collar is not at the right setting. And it was fine when I started out, but what happens is that as you are making your pocket holes, you might be putting pressure on this, and this might not be tight enough. If it's not tight enough, it's going to move. So look at this. It is, if it focuses, it has moved below 3/4 inch, which means that a whole bunch of boards right here have these holes, which means that these pocket holes are not going to be strong. So I'm going to have to make alternate pocket holes, but find space to make them. So that's a lesson learned. Be sure to check the ends of your board as you're making the pocket holes, and of course make sure that the drill bit collar is nice and tight. So now I have to make sure that this space between the holes is what I use for making the pocket holes. So when I place the board in there, I want to make sure that I align the holes accordingly. It's a little bit tricky, but we can make it work. There's the first hole, and then we're gonna make one over here. And there, we've got 1 and 2. You just have to be careful with which one we use. So these are the old ones, and then we have the other new ones next to it.
But oh well, you don't even need to watch me make pocket holes in these 1x3s because I ultimately did not use them. So now it is time to start putting everything together. First step is the basic frame and the legs. I clamped a scrap piece of 2x4 to help support the leg while I butted up the apron against it and attached using pocket hole screws. Of course, you can use a clamp here as well, but if you don't have a clamp large enough, this is another great option. For the rest of the joints, I used my 48-inch clamp and went ahead and attached all 4 sides to all the 4 legs to build the base frame. And then I slid the first shelf into place. Or at least I tried. So I took out the shelf, used my jigsaw to fix that, and then it slid in perfectly. I just went ahead and attached it using brad nails, and then it was on to the next level. I used the 2x4 spacers I had cut out to hold up and balance the 1x2s in place and keep them level as I attached them using pocket hole screws. And then I went on to attach the next one, which was going to be a 1x3, and that's when I realized that it was not going to work. I really did need 1x2s, so I bought some, I cut them up, made pocket holes, and then went ahead and attached it. And because the spacers are exactly equal, I can simply use them at every level to hold the aprons in place, keep them level, so I can just keep attaching them with pocket hole screws. I added wood glue, added the next shelf, and attached that with brad nails. And then I just repeated it to build the next level as well. Finally, for the topmost level, once the aprons were attached, I placed the top plywood. Now, I could use brad nails to attach on the top, but I really didn't want to mar the top surface, so I used finished screws and attached them from the bottom. I used caulking on all of the seams to get that seamless look, filled the nail holes with wood filler, sanded them smooth, and cleaned the entire piece and got ready to paint. I applied primer and paint, and if you want to know exactly how to paint unfinished wood to get that perfect durable finish, be sure to check out the article on my website, and I will add a link to that in the description below. While the paint was drying, we decided to tackle the Legos. We sorted all of them out by color into each of the bins. Once the paint was dry, I went ahead and attached the casters to the bottom. Of course, the caster has 4 screws in it, but there's only space to add 3. 3 are good enough because this is not going to get a lot of heavy-duty use. And then I attached the folding shelf brackets. These are pretty straightforward to attach, and it just takes a few screws. I screwed them into the sides first. And then I went ahead and put a piece of plywood on top and attached it to the brackets from the bottom. Of course, I had to lay down on my garage floor to do that, but oh well, it's totally worth it. Once both the folding sides were attached, I added a few Lego plates onto the top. I simply glued these into place with a really strong adhesive. You want to make sure that they are spaced perfectly so they work with the Legos. The best way to do that is to use actual Lego bricks to hold them down while they're drying. and we filled them up with all the Lego bins sorted out by color. Now this was actually 2 weeks ago. Since then we have realized that it's actually easier to use the Legos if they are sorted by shape and not color. So we are actually in the process of resorting it right now. And that is it. It is a super simple project. It is perfect for small homes where you don't have a lot of space for a huge Lego table. You can easily fold this up and put it in the corner, or pull it out and almost triple the work surface if you need to. And honestly, it can be used for so much more than just Legos. And if you want to build one of these, I have the full detailed plans, step-by-step instructions, and detailed dimensions and schematics, and I will add a link to that in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I have a few more fun projects coming to your way soon, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And in the meantime, here are some other projects that you might enjoy.